What's up, everybody? Welcome to the ManTFup podcast. Now, before we go any further, I'm just going to remind everybody, please like, subscribe, follow, share, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, Google, YouTube, Buzzsprout, Pandora, pretty much any and everywhere folks are talking. You will find the ManTFup TV team doing just that, talking. Now, I am Kimmy B. This guy right here,
Lenny, how you doing?
Now, Len, we've been in a crazy kind of holding pattern. And when I say we, I'm talking collective the world for 2 years now. Literally, we're coming up on the 2-year mark. So we'll be going into our 3rd year of quote unquote pandemic life around March. Right?
Yeah, I heard there was something going on.
Yeah. You're one of those people that has clearly left it. I think you probably left it in 2020. Most of us
left it about 3 weeks after it started. Yeah.
Most of us brought it into at least 2021. By now, we're just like, I told folks on New Year's, I was like, I'm not saying nothing about 2022 until we get to at least March or April. I'm making no predictions because I feel like every time we, on New Year's Eve get to that point, we're like, yeah, new year, we're going to start fresh. And, the next year just says, here, hold my beer. Right? Like, oh,
pretty much.
Really? But some interesting things have been happening on Twitter lately. Obviously, people use Twitter for everything. Conversations, complaints, aggressions.
Whining.
Everything. And there's been a lot of dialogue about, obviously, the pandemic on there. We've seen a lot of people talking about, WFH, like working from home. There's been a lot of conversations. Usually it's employees though, right? And recently I came across a tweet and basically, people will go there to solicit advice, free advice from their Twitter family. And one of the posts that I saw was basically a person saying that today I have to send my boss an email that states I will no longer participate in monthly meetings held in his office with unvaccinated people, even though they test weekly. Before I send the email, tell me if I sound unreasonable, please. Be honest, I can take it. And this particular tweet ended up with obviously thousands of retweets and replies, and the responses ran the gamut. But I say again, a lot of the conversations I've seen about, workplace dynamic and the pandemic have to do with employees. It's not a whole lot of bosses weighing in. And I'm sure that's for a multitude of reasons. But I realize everybody's on the same page. Everybody wants to make money. Everybody wants to work, right? If you're hopefully in that kind of environment. But it seems like it's starting to splinter a little bit. The employee and the employer kind of perspective on how to move forward.
This is it's funny. I have to go back to that there's still a same basic thing here. If you give a mile, give an inch, people will take a mile. It's the same basic thing with cancel culture, with, political correctness, with
sick days,
with an excused sick day, because if you got 5 colds a year, your boss might not be that okay with it. Hey, you're getting sick a lot. They're going to say something, but whatever seems to be going on now is like a universal excuse. It's like hey, people could take months off work right now.
Months? Our teachers can't take months.
But listen, you're talking about several different things. You got government workers, you got private businesses, you got Fortune 500s, you got a lot of different spectrums.
There's a difference between taking off and working from home, though. There's a lot of businesses pivoted in that space. I think Twitter actually said, hey, from this point on, you don't ever have to come back to the office. That was something that they decided back in 2020.
Yeah, listen, a lot of companies are taking advantage of this and going completely off because now we don't have any overhead of an office for 500 people, the whole 9 yards.
Yep.
Great if that's how you can work. But if you have a company that requires interaction between employees, then online might not be the best because,
Are you saying Zooms don't give you engagement and connection, Lenny?
Nothing. They give you nothing. I mean, listen, we have one teammate that has to Zoom. Our other teammate would drive down from Tampa every week for the meeting if we requested it, but it's not necessary. And the other one lives way too far. But no, we don't get the energy levels. We don't get all of that from those people. And we don't also get their full attention because, they're sitting at home with their feet in a foot massager and they're not in the space. They're not in the time. And it's critical for some businesses to have that.
But let me ask you a question. Okay, so we'll get back to the tweet that I saw because I think I would love to know what your response would be if one of your employees sent you that email. But doesn't that say more about the type of employees that you hired out the gate? If these are people because I'm going to be very honest, like working in radio, we used to do like a once a month, maybe a quarterly kind of like quote unquote town hall. And I would get so annoyed in that meeting because it'd be a 2-hour, affair where basically all anybody did was blow smoke up people's asses. And all I could think about in my head was all the work I could be doing while you have me sitting in this meeting where literally we're commending people for doing their job. Like, this is just bullshit, right? So for me, not having people in the office in that way and being able to dialogue directly with the people I need to. Now, mind you, I was one of the only people in our building during the pandemic because I wanted to be in the studio because to your point, I believe there's just a different vibe, a different connection. I like, having as a person that likes to feel we can do this from home. Obviously, look, we're literally doing a recording session in the man cave, right? So we can do this in radio. We could do an entire show from the comfort of I was doing it actually in the closet because I had better acoustics. So I was literally doing my afternoon and my night show in a closet for the first couple of weeks. But then I was like, as soon as everybody kind of left, I was like, can I come back, please? Just because I liked being in the studio. I liked that feeling of doing live, radio and being able to connect with my audience and things like that. But that's who I am as an employee, right? That's who I am as a talent.
And how you were raised. You kind of, you 2007 was the advent of the iPhone. So people who were brought up on the iPhone, people who were 10 years old, 12 years old,
but they're 22. We're talking about grown-ass people that are writing these emails to their bosses.
People have fallen into this disconnected lifestyle. Like they feel comfortable DMing somebody on IG that they've never spoke to, and they would cross the street to avoid talking to them in person.
Yeah.
So you're going to get a lot of this. You're going to get a lot of this. These younger generations, like, why do we need a meeting? It's, for me and for some other people that I know in business, it's important to be face-to-face with someone. It's important to shake their hand. It's important to look into their eyes and read their body language, which you can't do on a Zoom. You just can't do it.
You don't even have to turn your camera on if you don't want to. Let me ask you a question. Did you ever consider making that mandatory? Because I'm sure there's been a lot of, kinks to work out throughout this whole process. And now you're coming up on 2 years, and that's the running joke, is that there's a lot of people who are tired of the Zoom meetings. And all of the kind of perks of working from home are to some degree wearing off for some people, right? Like you have other folks that are ready to get back in the office, but they're prioritizing the safety not only of themselves, but of their, their immediate family that they might live with, extended family that they may want to gather and get together with, which then, you can control the variables in your house to some degree. You can't control what's happening with all of your coworkers. You know what I'm saying? When you start returning back to that kind of in-person office experience.
Yes, clearly people are still living in fear. But
why does it have to be living in fear?
Because they're not leaving their house.
No, they're leaving their house, but they're still in control of the people. That's just a regular everyday life. They still control where they go. They still control who they're around. When you're coming back and you have to work in a cubicle like some of these people do, like this isn't a big space. And if all of us are in here, like the likelihood that if one person has got COVID, us all getting it, and we have a 4-hour meeting is pretty high.
I guess. I mean, it's the same as if you go to a restaurant that has people sitting in it. It's the same.
But you have the option to sit outside. You have the option to do takeout. You have options.
Yes, I said go to a restaurant where you're sitting with other people. So
but you can sit with other people and be outside. This is an inside. We're not having We're not having our meetings.
They haven't proven that you can't spread it outside. I mean, you're still only people wear their mask walking to a table, and then they sit down, and they're literally almost
sure.
back to back with the person.
I mean, and there were early on. Let's be clear, that was not what was happening. You had massive amounts of space in between tables, and now we've got. First of all, if you're the person that's willing to go out to eat, right? If you're going to some of these restaurants on Las Olas here in Broward, in Fort Lauderdale, or in Midtown, you're not the person sending this email.
Again, so that
you're
person,
not the person,
that person is changing their entire life based on
respect that they have for the people that they live
if
with.
you don't want to call it fear, you could call it something else, but
Why
it's
is it fear? It's respect for the people that you live with. Like, you can't, you're just being ridiculously different. Just because you don't care doesn't mean that you can judge somebody else.
I know people who aren't exposing other people that don't want to go out. I have some friends that are like, no, I can't. I had a friend who lived in
But do you judge? You sound like you judge them for that.
I don't judge them. It's their choice. It's their choice. So do I have to change my environment because of them? No.
But you don't, and they don't ask.
And I feel the same way about business.
Okay, but that and as the owner of a business, you are well within your rights. But let me ask you a question: if you have an incredible employee, and this is how they feel, right? Like, because you don't mandate vaccination in this office. That's not, and you never ever would. I'm surprised, in fact, that you haven't mandated not getting vaccinated.
No, but that's a choice. That's a personal choice, and I have no problem either way. I don't even care if you test positive. You can still come to work. It doesn't bother me. I'm not worried about it. And I have in-laws who are, 70 years old, and one has stage 4 cancer. So we're not in fear of it. I'm not.
It doesn't feel a little reckless to you? Like, stage 4 cancer? That's the definition of being immunocompromised.
We stay away.
Okay.
When we know that we're sick or been exposed, we're not all up in our face. But by the same token, we're not, on the other end of the spectrum where we never see her because...
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's probably not good for her mental health either.
No, none of this is good for anyone's mental health.
But you can't fault people for prioritizing to different degrees the people in their life that they care about, because here's the issue. Me knowing that about you, that makes me be more protective of coming around you. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, in the sense of, if I know that you have a birthday dinner coming up, but again, that goes to your workplace environment. And I think if you create a family feeling, a connection, I think people are more respectful of, everybody's.
We're small.
Yeah.
We're a small place. We only have a few people, so it's not really that big a deal for us. And I think, making concessions for people like her.
This is the woman who was getting ready to write the email, basically saying, with the new surge, she would no longer be attending the once a month in-person
The only thing I
meetings
could suggest to her, is to say, I will not be attending the meetings temporarily.
To clarify.
Because when you read it to me, it clearly said, I'm never coming back in the office till everybody's vaccinated.
Say that.
It's what it says.
No, it's not what it says.
All right, read it again.
You're inferring that.
Read it again.
You're inferring that. Hold on, I'll find it. It says, I will no longer participate in monthly meetings held in his office with unvaccinated people, even though they test weekly. That's all she said.
I will no longer participate in monthly meetings with unvaccinated people. So, if there's employees that never get vaccinated, she's never coming back to a meeting.
I think that
that's what she said.
I think that she's talking about, we're literally in the middle of a surge.
I understand what she's talking about. It just needs to be clarified. Like I said, if,
So that would be your recommendation.
Austin just had a baby.
If you were commenting on this post, that would be, as an employer, as a boss, that would be your recommendation. Like, hey, I would make sure that you specify that in the short term, you're no longer coming to me.
If you're never going to come to a monthly meeting again, you need to find another job. It's that simple. Austin had a baby. Okay, you need to stay out of the office for a couple weeks. That's a concession due to this. And then what happens? His mother-in-law is staying with him, taking care of the baby, and she's got COVID.
She has COVID.
You didn't hear that yesterday?
No.
So he had to. His mother-in-law was quarantining in his house.
Yeah.
So, in her bedroom. So he had to take care of babies. Him and his wife had to take care of babies and the mother-in-law while she was quarantined with COVID. With whatever.
Somebody was going to need to take care of her anyway. So, I mean,
No, I
she
get
was
that.
already there.
But, they have brothers and sisters, and she could have quarantined at her house. And,
Gotcha.
it was just.
She was there to help with the baby.
The bottom line to this is you never know who has it. So you would basically have to disassociate with everybody. The checkout girl at the Publix, because you're within 2 feet of the person at Publix when you check out.
A lot of people, I still wear a mask when I go to the grocery store.
And that's fine, but you're still touching things, and most people are conscious, but it's still, for some reason, this last wave of whatever this is spread like wildfire. So, and after 2 years of people being so conscious of not touching their eyes and washing their hands and everything, it still managed to spread like wildfire. So
I don't think people are still singing their ABCs when they're washing their hands anymore. I don't think they're going through happy
Counting to
birthday
10.
twice anymore in the bathroom. I hear that water go on and off real quick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, no, I think it's an interesting position to be in because, to your point, like, we had the conversation the other day out at a supercar show, and you were like, I mean, you're here. And I was like, I am here. And a mask hinders my job. It hindered my job at the start of the pandemic. Luckily, when we started, I was on the air by myself. When I got my morning show, there were 3 of us in the studio, and we had people, you're hypocrites. And it was like, no, we don't wear our masks in this room. First of all, our whole theory was, to your point, if one of us has got it,
we're all getting it.
We talk for a living. So we're literally talking at each other in a studio for 5 hours a day, minimum. But when we would leave, we would always put a mask on, and it was a respect for our other, teammates in the building and just whatever. We followed the protocol that our company had laid out, which was, if you're outside of your studio, if you're not on the air, you had to be masked up anywhere in the building. You're supposed to take your temperature before you came into the building. I obviously no longer worked at that place, but I don't think that they've really changed. And many people are still working from home. And I know a lot of the salespeople in particular were happier being at home and getting more done being at home. Because let's be clear, Lenny, you're not this guy, like you said, you have 1 meeting a week. There are other industries where it's OD. It's 3 meetings a day. They're talking about, like I said, the 1 meeting I'd be required to go to was 2 hours of nonsense. And I would be irate by the time I left because I was like, I could have had 2 shows tracked, 4 commercials cut. I could have prepped for my show tomorrow, and you had me sitting in here for no reason. Like, you understand? So now you have people that don't have to attend those things.
Yeah, I get that there's non-productive meetings going on. But I also get that, people who are allowed to work on their own, some of them might not be as responsible as others. Mm-hmm. So when you allow people to work on their own from their house, the work might not be getting done as quickly. It might not be getting done as effectively. They might not be doing as much research. I mean, it's kind of, there's a thing about having people where you can walk over and talk to them. Mm-hmm. Like, again, scrambled eggs up here. Mm-hmm. I spit stuff out repeatedly. Mm-hmm. It drives me nuts when I can't get a hold of somebody. Mm-hmm. I have an idea.
Lenny must hate working with me.
When I have an idea and I want to talk to somebody, and it's everybody's different, mm-hmm. but when I have an idea and I want to tell Nestor, I want to tell him right now. Mm-hmm. Because if I don't tell him right now, I might not tell him. Mm-hmm. So that's part of having people in your office and people interacting with you is being able to communicate. And I get, you can Slack, you can email, you can this, it's.
But you realize that some of your employees will get their work done literally one day, a 40-hour work week. Some people are so focused and regimented. Like some of these folks that are, WFH and are getting it done.
Here's the next problem with that. It's a 40-hour work week. Mm-hmm. So if you get your work done in 10 hours, you owe me 30 hours. Mm-hmm. I don't care how fast you work. This is not.
Why don't you give them more work?
This is not. But again,
That's the
they're not in the reach of you. You can't see them sitting at their desk twiddling their fucking thumbs.
But if that, but whose fault is that? I guess that to me is, I feel like this has been a great opportunity. I think for business owners, for business in general, for the working sector, to really kind of reevaluate what the workforce looks like, because we got so stuck in this 9 to 5 way of life, right? And a lot of folks, that works for them. For other people, like you had started to see it in big tech, where they had their campuses, and the campus would be open and available 24 hours a day. Because if you're a night person, maybe you're more effective from 7 p.m. till 3 o'clock in the morning, but your job tells you you've got to be there from 9 to 5. So Google started doing that. I think Facebook started doing that, and you'd have people in there. They had sleep pods. You know what I mean? So folks were coming in at their prime creative hours and really doing incredible work.
And that's great on a certain level.
You're a 9 to 5 guy, though. You like the 9 to 5.
I'm a 9 to 5. I worked from 6 a.m. to 9 the other night.
No,
I'm not.
Yeah, but that's
yes,
what I'm saying
yes.
to you is, like, your office, though, you like
I
to
can
have.
tell you this: when I am ready in the morning to get something done, the people that I need to do those tasks need to be sitting and ready to do them. Not, I'm going to come in at 10 today. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. That hinders my whole entire business. Because, mind you, my stuff I do from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. doesn't really affect anybody else's life. Okay? I don't need anybody in those hours. That's my hours. But after that, if you're supposed to be at work at 9 o'clock, and I call at 9 o'clock and you're not there to do what I need you to do, you just fucked my whole day. Oh, you fucked my whole day. Because by 9:10, I'm on to something else, and I won't remember that 9 o'clock thing till 1:30 in the afternoon.
You might need a little ginkgo biloba in your life.
Nah, I have a tremendous amount of stuff I do, and I have a schedule. And
you don't have a great memory. You couldn't remember that we had gone out to eat at a particular restaurant that you absolutely loved. So, like, obviously there's some things going on upstairs here, Len. Maybe it's a little brain overload.
Well, I would have remembered in 5 minutes.
You want to write? Your phone has a notes app.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, no.
I'll forget to look at it.
You don't want to do that?
I'll forget to look at it.
All right.
I actually have a pretty good memory for things.
So what do you think, though? What do you think the pandemic,
By the way, did you hear that Spain is spearheading a thing in Europe to downgrade this from a pandemic to an endemic?
It is, yeah. I think the WHO already ruled this.
Did they pass it?
Yeah, it's an endemic.
Okay.
Or that's how it's been. It's something that's never going away. If you don't know what that means, it just means we're gonna have to deal with it. It's like the flu. We're gonna have to deal with it.
It's like the flu. It's just like anything else. It's here.
It's not. But that doesn't. They're not minimizing the effects of it. They're just saying that a pandemic hits and then it's over. This is something that we're going to be dealing with long term. So yes, we're all going to have to pivot.
Yeah, we got to get normal. We got to get normal.
But I think normal at this point now looks different no matter what. Like, you're a local
That's a shame.
business. No, I mean, it is and it isn't, though, because I think that a lot of people have realized how they're more effective, right? Like, you have people that sit in traffic and they love what they do every single day. But like in Miami, if you live in South Miami and you work in Hollywood, you're spending a good 3.5 hours, 3 to 3.5 hours in traffic, depending on what time you have to leave your house and be to work and whatever. And so I know there's a lot of people that are like, hey, I'd rather work longer days, but work less of them. So maybe it's like a Tuesday, Friday work week. You know what I mean? But I'll give you 7 to 7 or whatever it is, or like I'll give you a longer day to make up for that Monday. But I'd rather not sit in traffic. No, I get 20 hours a week.
I get all of that. Yes, there's going to be a big pivot in business. A lot of people are going to work from home. A lot of the big companies are probably going to push that, and a lot of big companies already had a lot of people satelliting. But you still need your core, and your core.
So is that going to be things that you're going to put, though? Like, do you think that in business these will be new job requirements, or these will be new factors that people are seeking out? Like, when you go through that whole courting process in business, where I'm applying for a job or you're looking for.
Let me put one more spin on it. Okay, this is one more spin on that. No problem. You want to work from home, it's going to be X amount less, because you no longer have to pay tolls and pay fuel and pay everything else. So you're not spending $100 a week on fuel. I'm going to pay you $100 less. Feel free to work from home.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to work for people?
I think for some people it would.
Maybe.
Can I tell you who I don't think it'll work for? I don't think it'll work for the older generations. I think it would work for younger people though. They're different. Like for me, you get set, because what happens, you get set to a set, like we put a lot of emphasis on salary, on an actual number. And we gauge our accomplishments off of that salary, right? Like, what am I making? Is it going up? I expect it to be here. This next generation is different. They prioritize their mental health. They really want to have a good work-life balance. You know what I'm saying? Like, people like me, I don't even know what that is. Like, and shame on me for that. But these few months that I haven't had an actual.
So what are you saying? The work ethic is going away? Because that's what it sounds like.
No, but there's a difference of what you deem as work ethic. Other people may deem as being taken advantage of. Do you understand? And that's part of the conversation that I think you as a business owner are going to find yourself having more often, you know, as you try to hire younger people that maybe are able, because the business that you work in, you need folks that have their have their finger on the pulse of what's happening technologically, what's happening culturally. So you can't just say, fuck it, if you're under the age of 30, I'm not ever going to hire you.
No, absolutely.
Like, you can't say that.
Absolutely.
But you're going to find yourself frustrated I think some applicants, you know, I think it's going to be trial and error with
I've already found myself frustrated with a lot of applicants because, you know, you either know the stuff but don't want to work or don't want to put in the time or don't want to put in the effort, or you want to put in the effort but you don't know dick. And it's a problem. It's a problem. And it's going to the work, you know, the classic work ethic is you do your job, you do it happily, and you get paid for it. And
happily? You think that's the classic work ethic?
You know,
happily,
I mean,
or you do it well. You do
your job and
you do it with pride.
Well. Yes, let's just say you do it well. You do it with pride, you know, whether it be working at McDonald's or here, you know, McDonald's was never meant to be a career for 90% of the people. It's meant to be a stepping stone. It's meant to be your first job, your second job, you know, just it's meant to, so you go from that.
But there are people that work.
No, there's absolutely people who work their way up and they make great money as managers, and that's true, but not every McDonald's employee is going to make it to manager.
No, but you do also realize, too, that, like, the food service industry is a career industry. Like, there are people who wait tables, go wait at Joe Stone Crabs, and they clear 6 figures. Like, yes. So that conversation gets very muddy because you have folks out there that are like, oh, well, you weren't supposed to wait tables. That's supposed to be what you do in college. And it's like, no. That's a viable source of income for people.
It is. If you enjoy it. I know people who've done it, you know, their whole life. It's fine. You have to find, and that goes to the point of the doing it well and enjoying what you do, because some people enjoy meeting new people every night and waiting on tables and making money. You know, I mean, you're in a good restaurant, you're going to make a couple hundred a night. You know, some 400 or 500 a night.
Or more, depending on what you're doing. And don't let you be a bartender. But my point is, I think there are many generations that would come before us that look at it and say, it's not about whether you love your job. Your job puts food on the table, it puts a roof over your house, it pays the bills, it provides you with insurance. Like, you do it, you appreciate that you have a job, and like you said, and it's more of a personal pride issue that whether you love your job or not, you still want to do your job well.
So what I'm seeing from the generation that we have coming up now, including some
millennials,
including some that I might be related to, is if I don't want to do it, I don't have to do it. I don't want to do it. If I'm, fine, I'll do what you tell me. I'm not going to enjoy it. I'm not going to put my heart into it. I'm just going to do the bare fucking minimum to get it done, okay? Which is not what you need to go forward.
No.
You know, it's just not. If you don't have people who are willing to put in the effort to do what they're doing correctly and double check themselves, and, you know, it's not worth it. I don't care if it's fucking Tom Sawyer painting fence, okay? If you're going to paint the fence, paint it right. Or don't bother. Okay. Go somewhere else. So that's a big problem with this generation is they think, hey, I'm worth X amount of dollars. Why? Just Just if you can clearly explain to me why you're worth what you're asking for, I might accept it.
Lenny, you just completely derailed our conversation.
No, I didn't.
You did. We were supposed to, because that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, well,
talking about the work
whatever.
ethic.
It's still we're still on the workplace.
No, it is. But I mean, again,
but that goes. It clearly goes to this: working at home, and
where people that are working at home though already had a job, right?
Yes.
They had already committed
and using
to their career path.
excuses to take those things that you don't like out of your job. So, I know you mentioned you have these meetings. You hated the fucking meeting.
But they were town halls. Yeah.
But you hated them.
Mm-hmm.
But your boss is sitting in that meeting going,
My boss is blowing smoke up everybody's ass for
but
doing
whatever.
their job.
He is using that for his job.
Mm-hmm.
That's his job
And
is to
also
so
people are pussies and just need to be, patted on the back for doing their job. That's the whole other thing.
But that's the boss's job is to either smack you or coddle your nutsack. That's his
I
job.
get it, but you're okay. But
He's here to make the performance
But
happen.
this is my question to you. So you were talking before. Remember we said 10 hours versus 40 hours, and if you can get it done. That, to me, is the bigger problem. Like, when you have a workforce, because here's the deal. There's a couple of things that happen when you actually come in. You develop a camaraderie with your coworkers, right? There's a different connection you have when you have personal relationships at your workplace, right? Like, it's just you're more, I think, committed and attached. So when you start to frustrate people where that's no longer of value, I'd rather be at home and be able to really, because here's the other thing that's changing. Lots of people want to put more tasks on your plate. We're downsizing. Doesn't mean the amount of work that we're having to do, but we're expecting people to do more tasks. I'm all for that. In fact, we had a VP of our company that once said, listen, if, you're a one-trick pony, like, this ain't the place for you anymore. Like, if you only want to wear one hat, that's cool, but that's not where we're going. Like, you need to be down to learn. You need to be down to expand. You need to be down, to grow and to be able to do more than just what you maybe were initially hired to do 10 years ago. And that's true, I think, of every industry across the
as
board.
well it should be.
It makes you better. The more you're able to
if you can't understand what your partner over here is doing, then you clearly can't understand the full spectrum of the business.
Yeah.
And then we've had this discussion a little bit.
But my point to that is, so you expect me to do more things, but then you also don't value my time because you've got me sitting here for 2.5 hours. Like, and here's the deal. I've been on sales meetings. We used to have a brand meeting. Same thing. Like, that's why I always refer to our Tuesday meeting as a brand meeting, because we always had our brand meeting on Tuesdays. And I loved those meetings. It was a great time. You know what I mean? And sometimes frustrating things would happen if you didn't get enough accomplished, or, if you felt like somebody was checked out, or you'd be like, why are you asking this question? We answered that last week in the brand meeting. But again, it was a great time, to your point, to connect, when we could be in person. Obviously, when the pandemic started, it went to the Zoom space, but we were still, and it was also a good gauge of who's still here. And you could also see who's maybe losing it a little bit.
Yeah.
But
we have one of those.
What?
Losing it a little bit? Clearly you could see when they're zoned out. They're clearly like,
facts.
You could clearly see it.
Facts.
It's like,
but so I'm not opposed to meetings. The other thing, though, like, when you have this massive quantity of time when you could be being productive, right? And you're in your head going, I have all of these things that you've now put on my plate to do, and you want to take these 2 hours to do nothing but, again, like I said, shower people with, I feel like it's a false sense of praise, because I'm not in it so that you can tell me
I
you
get
did a
that,
great job.
but again, that's the hierarchy of the company seeing what's going on. He's seeing who's uncomfortable, who's comfortable, who's not sitting next to who. It's showing you the dynamics of the people. It's funny. I did this. We had our Christmas party at my old business like 10 years ago. I took everybody to Painting with a Twist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
We've done that before.
Yeah, this is a Christmas party.
Yep.
No, it's a fucking psychological experiment. Mm-hmm. Because if you look at people and how they paint in Painting with a Twist, you can tell their whole fucking personality. You can tell the ones that could shit out a diamond because they're like so precise, so perfect, so, you could tell the ones that, clearly live on the dark side and are always going to be aggravated because they're like, yeah, the same painting. It's amazing. You do the same painting and you can see the personalities of all the people in the paintings. So, those type of things are what these meetings, like that one you're talking about, are for. It's for the management. It's, believe it or not, it's important to the management to see that. So it might aggravate you to go to the meeting, but
what I'm saying is those meetings get curbed. Like in a pandemic, those kind of meetings fall to the wayside because every meeting is a Zoom meeting, right?
Yes.
Every meeting is like that. So you start to cut down on some of those. And so some people are like, ooh,
Yeah,
we don't have
I'm
those
happy.
meetings anymore. And now they're using that 2 hours that they might have spent in that meeting to actually get some more work done, to be more creative, to make a couple more calls, to get a couple more leads, to, prep a little harder for their show, whatever the case may be. So there's been, I think, some good things to what has happened during the pandemic. I'm just hoping that, employers like yourself, bosses, people in management positions are going to be willing to have open dialogue with their workforce about what work. This is, again, to your point, painting with a twist is a psychological experiment. The last 2 years have been one big mind fuck, right?
Yeah.
But
relationships have blossomed, relationships have been destroyed, business relationships have blossomed, some have been destroyed.
Look at how many people now are reevaluating what they want to do for a career. Again, you've got a lot of people going back, balancing that work-life thing, right? Like looking at it, and is this what I want to do for the next 20 years of my life? You've got a lot of things, a lot of moving, pieces to this puzzle right now. And I'm hoping that people will have open dialogue and not just shoot somebody down when they send this email about not wanting to be in a once a month meeting.
My answer to that would be, you mean like the next meeting or like every meeting from here forward? Mm-hmm. That would be my response to that. You talking about you need a couple, you want to just take a couple of meetings off? Because clearly if the company doesn't have a policy of forcing people to get vaccinated, then that boss is clearly open-minded enough to say, that doesn't really work for us. Mm-hmm. That's not our thing, So if you're talking about one meeting because there's a little boom going on, fine. If you're talking about going forward, I think you might need to find another place to work because we require it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, but I think that that's just something that, we saw it a lot with the folks who didn't want to get the poke and the whole conversation about people shouldn't have to be forced to choose between a job and their health or whatever.
So
the case
what is this?
So this is just the flip side of that.
So what cases are going to start flying at people, at companies for discriminating against against vaxxed or not? Mm-hmm. You're going to see this. Mm-hmm. And it's not fair to the companies to be open to that. It's like malpractice. Mm-hmm. It's like anybody, first of all, anybody can sue anybody in this country for anything.
Can we not? That's a whole
No, I know that.
Another conversation.
But this particular thing, like if that woman's boss says to her, look, sorry, that's not a policy of our company. It's a requirement to be here. If you can't accept that, then, maybe this is not the place for you. She's going to have a fucking coronary.
You think she's going to have a coronary? I'm just saying, I think that, is it really that difficult? It's a once a month. This isn't a weekly thing. It's literally once a month. So clearly the getting together people, again, it's probably just a gauge. It's like hey, let's connect, let's touch base, let's be here physically in person to see each other and whatever. To me, is it really that difficult to extend the hand and say, we'll send you a Zoom link, right? Or we'll...
Yes. If you do it, yes. Yes, Gimme. Yes. It's setting precedents. Okay? Like I said, a concession for a situation is one thing. Every boss would do that.
Would you make the exception if you were in a mandatory vax situation and that person didn't want to get vaxxed? See,
no.
like you wouldn't but that's because you're not in that space.
If you have a mandatory meeting, the whole point of mandatory is that you have to do it. If you have that, we don't want to change our entire company philosophy because you don't want to or do want to do something about your health. Yeah, I can't accept it. I can't accept it, and I don't want businesses to go that route. I don't want,
See, I mean, and I disagree. I just think that if it's a private business, you have the choice. You don't want to mandate vaccines, and that's on you. Like,
I mean, we're coming from two different places. You're coming from an employment background, and I'm coming from a employer background.
But I worked for a company that mandated vaccines. It was, you had to have a vaccine to come in our building. Like, that was, many people in entertainment have done that. This is you can't wear masks. There's not a whole lot of
I
protocols.
feel you.
And it's also very expensive, Lenny. Like, you may not give a shit, but like at the company I worked for, every time somebody tested positive, you had to bring in a cleaning crew.
No, I get all that.
Everything. You know what I'm saying? You had to literally, I mean, the white suits came in, and that's just looking out for your other employees, because those are lawsuits that come also if you don't prioritize people's health and their safety.
The whole thing is
so now are we
going to
have to? Well, I mean,
you know who it's not screwing up? It's not screwing up the people who are profiting from it. Who's the biggest beneficiary
but
of
even
this?
with the flu, though, you ask people to stay their asses home when they have the flu. You ask them that. Like, oh, you have the flu. Like,
but you don't say to them,
please stay home.
You don't tell the rest of your people you need to go get the flu vaccine.
No, but you definitely do encourage. You just said, I mean, earlier you said, I don't care if you come in. Like, that's another policy. Like, that's usually something that goes out in November. You usually get the big email. Hey guys, if you're feeling under the weather, because the shit spreads. It's just,
I said if you tested positive, not if you're sick. If you tested positive, because you could test positive for weeks after.
Okay.
So if you're sick, that's one thing. If you're like blowing snot all over the conference room table, that's a different story. Stay home. But if you tested positive and you have no symptoms, I can't buy into it.
Okay.
I can't buy into it.
Well, like I said, I think that there's a lot of companies that have bought into it.
I mean, big companies, it's got to be very disruptive.
But
it's got to be very
disruptive. What happened
disruptive.
over the Christmas holiday when you're talking about the airline industry? Like, it's expensive. There's a reason why. You think they wanted to make vaccines mandatory? No, but if it can drop the likelihood that we're going to have to cancel 100 less flights, then they're going to do it, because it's so difficult to bounce back from. It costs millions of dollars to deal with this shit.
Listen, I get that, Kimmy, but again, on that subject, you can still give it to everyone. You're not. That
okay.
That shot is not changing the contagiousness of it.
We don't. Okay.
And it's not changing who can give it to you or can't. If you told me, hey.
But to your point, you can test positive and come in here, but if you're asymptomatic, if the likelihood of you having symptoms or having no symptoms at all, you not coughing, you not spitting, you not hacking up a lung, you're not. All of those things, you don't think that makes you. I don't want to have this conversation. I'm just going to pull this whole combo down again.
No. Let's stay where we were.
Thank you. Then don't take it off the rails.
You took it off the rails.
No.
You gave the example of the
oh my God.
having to get vaccinated.
We're talking about a particular
case, yeah.
Twitter.
And I gave you my opinion on it. It is what it is. I don't think that one way or the other.
Moving forward, so take this out of it. Literally, it's endemic. We're going to be dealing with it. What does that do to business moving forward? Is this now something, are you going to put a COVID policy in when you're looking for new employment? Is this something that you're going to lay out? Like you were talking about if you're sick.
I guess some companies are. You're going to have companies that require it and companies that don't. That's what you're going to have. And you're going to have...
Require what? I'm not talking about a vaccination. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, are you going to put certain things in there? Like, oh, if there's an outbreak, then we're going to give you X amount of days off. Like, you have teachers right now that literally are afraid to test positive because they're being charged their sick days, which they're saving for maternity leave or whatever.
They're sick. They're sick. I mean, it's like, if they got the flu, they would take sick days. Mm-hmm. So if they get this, which is now being considered more like the flu, apparently, at least in Europe, then you take your sick days. It's the same thing. There's no difference.
But you realize, like, the deal with...
Like, you could get the flu every year. A lot of people in this country get the flu every year. So instead, they didn't get the flu this year. They got this, which made them sick for a week. It's
You
the
say-
same
okay.
sickness. It's the same week. Not the same sickness, but it's the same week
Mm-hmm.
that you would have missed work with the flu that you're missing with this. So there's no added, nobody's making you, do you understand what I'm saying?
No.
You can't, Kimmy, you can't take this and make it that special. I get it. It's dangerous. It was dangerous to people. It killed more people than other flus.
700,000, more than the Spanish flu killed
Yeah.
in a year. and
Yeah.
change.
I get it. I get it. It's
different, Len.
yeah,
and
it's
contagious,
totally different. It's
and we have again, we talk about this.
98.5% survival rate. I get it. But the point is,
Survival with a diminished quality of life.
the point is, if you get sick, you stay home from work. These people, whoever they are, might get it's an illness. It's not, the flu goes around.
But you saying that you're positive and can't spread, that's it's different though, because this is what we're talking about. You can be asymptomatic. And
Why would you be testing? Why are you testing?
What do you mean?
Oh, because they're forcing them to test. See, that's if you're asymptomatic, why would you take a test?
Because you were exposed. Like, that's the whole point of this, is that if you know you were exposed, you take it because you don't want to spread it. Like, that was the whole point with Omicron, is that you can apparently spread it before you even test positive. You're contagious before you test positive.
Yeah.
Hence the situation that we're in right now. We want to avoid this because people
I'm telling you, we had 20 people in the house, and 9 of them got it. 9 of them got it, and nobody was sick that day or had been sick prior to that day.
And ended up sick, because I know your wife
9,
was sick.
yeah.
You had a fever of what? 100 and something?
103 point whatever. It's not the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I've had that fever before.
Oh, good.
I've had it from the flu. My whole life I get,
You get
typically once a year I get sick. Which is pretty much how it's gone through this too. I got sick in January a year ago. I once a year. Around the holidays, I usually get sick for a week,
yeah.
a couple days.
Maybe you should take better care of yourself.
Yeah, maybe it's
More
just
rest,
it's normal.
Your immune system's boosted. It's not normal.
Maybe I
knock
should
on wood,
hide.
I don't get the flu.
Maybe I should hide and
I
wear a
don't get
mask.
the flu, hence the reason why I don't get the flu shot.
Yeah.
My whole point in this conversation
Do you
was
get
talking about
colds?
business. Not really.
Oh, that's good.
No, I have. But again, I take care of myself. Like, that just is, I think that, again, it goes back to having the bigger conversation. But I think that business is going to have this conversation went so
Yes.
everywhere, and now.
But it's going to have repercussions.
I don't think they all have to be bad, though. I think that literally we've got a great opportunity to see how people are more effective at doing their jobs. And then I'm just saying, I think from a business, you clearly want people here. Even if they're not doing anything, if they're just sitting around, you like to have people here in case you get a brilliant idea and you want to just put it in Nestor's ear or put it in Austin's ear or put it in Nick's ear.
Yeah.
Other people might prefer that those folks, even if they're working from home, are productively engaged in whatever they're doing and creating and knocking out content.
Like I said,
and
it's going to
everything else.
fall out to the management of the companies, and they're going to make those decisions and change accordingly.
So basically, you as a business owner, see, this is an interesting perspective. You want your team to operate in a way that you operate most efficiently.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Why not?
What do you mean, why not? Because
Why
if your
not?
team can be more productive operating in other ways, why would you not want your
How
team
do you
to
know
be
that?
more productive?
How do you know that? How do you know that? Because I, in this company, have shown everyone on my team that we're more productive when we're all sitting around that table.
But they're around that table once a week.
So that's all I'm asking for.
But they're productive.
I mean,
outside of that.
No. Do I want an Angelie in my office all the time? Yes. That was the whole point. Okay, there's a lot of stuff. My office is closed most of the
an
day.
administrative assistant.
Yeah. Most of the office is closed during the day. So we can't get packages. We can't do, so yes, I want someone. So when I walk in this door, I could scream to them. Yes. Nestor comes here a lot because there's a lot of things Nestor does from home, but there's things that we get done much faster and much better together. Editing certain things, working on some of the pages, because there's a loss. There's a loss between the communication. And yeah, for me especially, because I don't go. Everybody, my whole team uses Slack.
Mm-hmm.
I don't ever go on the Slack channel. Mm-hmm. That's not me. I'm not searching through threads or looking for. No, that's not me. I will maybe occasionally check my email every couple of hours. Mm-hmm. But when Nestor sends something and I don't check my email for 3 hours, or I forget, or or my phone rings and it's somebody going, hey, we got a problem over here. I need you to take care of it. Then whatever was there is gone. If they were sitting right next to me, they could go, hey, remember, we got to do this. People, when you're disconnected like that, when your communications start to become all like this and no like this, you lose productivity. I mean, we have a perfect example. I mean, we're trying to get something done for Amazon, and it's taking weeks. And I called my bookkeeper and I said, "Look, can you fucking handle this?" And got it done in 24 hours because they picked up the phone and they called the people and they said, how can we handle this in 24 fucking hours? Mm-hmm. Instead of waiting for them to email back, and then those people forget to email back, and then 2 days later you get an email back. And meanwhile, I have a product that's not on Amazon because I need a fucking piece of paper that's taken 2 weeks to get. When all we had to do is make a phone call and get it in 24 hours.
How old's your bookkeeper?
Huh?
How old's your bookkeeper?
She's a dinosaur. You know who my bookkeeper is?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't?
Right.
Oh.
But that's okay. But I'm just saying, I think that's something that a lot
That's
of
my bookkeeper.
I think that's something that a lot of bookkeepers are going to, well, not bookkeepers, but a lot of businesses are going to have to either reteach people just because you have a generation that's not how they operate.
Again, yes. But that makes it difficult on the without the connection. You have to connect with people on some level in person, because for me, I feed off other people's energy, and I know you do too. You're pretty intuitive about people's energy and getting that going. And you could have 10 people in a room that are like blah, and you get that one energetic person, that one motivated person walks in the room and can change everybody. Mm-hmm. That's why we have Tony Robbins and what's his name? That's why these people do well, because they inspire and they
like Grant Cardone and Gary Vee. I was just put their names out there and I had to come up with them in my brain.
They inspire other people, and that, I think, as a manager or an owner of a company, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to inspire your employees to do a better job, and you can't do that on a fucking Zoom.
That sounded like a mic drop, bro. Mic
dunk
drop. Yep. I mean, I can't really disagree. I don't have employees, so what am I going to say about that? I do think that moving forward, it's going to be a very different workplace environment. I think that people are going to have to be open to conversations and to suggestions from their workforce, and I think that people in the workforce are going to have to be willing to
this girl, why couldn't she just wear a mask? And if all of these things protect you, why couldn't you just do it? Why wouldn't you just come into the meeting wearing a mask, wear a goddamn hazmat suit, okay? Why couldn't you just come into the meeting wearing a mask and gloves and sit down, sit down and do the meeting and get up and walk out? Why can't you do that?
I mean, you can. I do it. I mean, I get it. I get it.
It's like, if all these things are effective to keep you from getting it, then just do those things come.
But I also wonder if it wasn't just a once a month thing. Like, in her mind and in the space that we're at, where we have technology now, I feel like
But this is to my point. She's using it as an excuse to get out of that 2.5 hour boring ass meeting. That's what she's using.
Still in it. You still got to be in it. You still got to be.
Yeah, she's in it. She's like,
like you said, people will do that in person too, though, Len.
That's fine.
They do it in person.
And the boss is watching them and going, that motherfucker's not even here.
And you still pay them.
Yeah. Or you get rid of them.
But you don't. Because if they're a good enough employee, sometimes the
Yes,
good outweighs. You make concessions.
You make concessions. Yes, neposm. We know all
it's
about
not
it.
Nepotism is different. You're very familiar with nepotism. Very familiar.
We know all about it.
That you've now just transcended nepotism to just your regular old employees.
Well, I treat my employees as my friends and as part of a team, and that's my thought process on it. So, yeah, if I have to, get rid of a team member, it's a big thing, but it takes a little bit to get into the team. I'll make you feel like you're in the team, but you're still on a trial basis till the team's, till we're all together, as you saw. With,
yes.
Yeah. So
for sure.
It's like, I'll give you a shot if you can bring that energy and tell me you can do this. I'll give you that shot, but don't expect me to be all warm and fuzzy if you're not gonna be all that in a bag of chips.
You love that phrase. I'm gonna have to find you a new one.
All that in a bag of chips.
That is so 1990 something.
Yeah, what's yours? Snicker, whatever.
No, I probably would
Snickum McLickum, whatever. Cheers.
Thickums McSnickums.
Yes.
I have a bunch, so I'm constantly making up new ones. But normally I would just say facts. If I was gonna co-sign something you're saying, I'd say facts. Or if you're not, if you're not next level, then you don't get the concessions. Anyway, this has been an interesting conversation. Like I said, when I saw that pop up on my Twitter feed, I was like, oh, Boss Lenny will so have something.
I just don't want it taken advantage of. I'm all for concessions for illnesses, for things, and I think that's important to have some common sense and letting things happen and having concessions for it. I'm not about changing every policy for one fucking person. Mm-hmm. Just not about it. And I've told you that. And it's again, goes to all that same old shit. One person cannot dictate what the masses do. It's not that simple. How many times have they said this? One person's life is not worth a million people's lives, and it's been that way forever. It's a thing,
But a lot of this is about the greater good. That's the problem, Len. So that argument goes both ways when you're talking about
the greater good for who?
Hell, I mean, but you're talking about the greater good. Are you talking about?
Let's not go. Let's wrap this.
Business?
Let's wrap.
You're talking about
this
your bottom line.
I'm talking about
living and dying, and then there's bottom line.
I'm talking about bottom lines is not. I don't think. I maybe I have a little different philosophy, but I think if you don't have a happy team, you're not going to have a good bottom line, and it's a lot of these companies are all about the bottom line, and I get it. It's their prerogative, and a lot of people have taken stances, and the bigger companies have taken stances. But I don't think Amazon requires everybody to get vaccinated, do they?
I have no idea. I'm not familiar with Amazon's employment policy.
I'm just curious. I'm not. It's because that's a company that has.
I'm not even talking.
Masses.
I'm just saying at this point, though, y'all business owners are going to have a lot of things to discuss with your workforce as we return back to quote unquote normal, because eventually we're seeing it, less and less days of quarantine and things.
Well, let me ask you this:
Lenny, let me just finish what
okay.
I'm going to say.
All right.
All I'm saying is now you have workforces that have figured out that they can, in fact, work from home, or maybe they don't need to be in the office 5 days out of the week. So I'm intrigued to see where this goes moving forward. There's factories are different. You know what I mean? There's certain jobs got to be in the building.
No, absolutely.
Certain things. But when we talk about, the enterprises and the industries where there's a little more flexibility, I think there's going to be a lot of conversations.
Oh, I definitely see it. I definitely see companies just doing it for the financial gain of it. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of it. Literally, my friend Stanley, his company is shutting down their whole office.
Wow.
Everybody's remote.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also said he's seen the most turnover in employees than he's ever seen at the company. It's like people are ripping through these things and that's part of it. But here I have one question. If the company has a policy that you have to be vaxxed, and the other company has a policy that says you can't work here if you're vaxxed, is that the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, clearly, if you can't, if you're vaxxed, you can't have a job here.
I mean,
that's okay.
I'm not saying.
Is that okay?
Either are okay, but I'm saying they're the same.
They're the same thing. Okay,
they're
that's
the
cool.
Same thing.
That's
yes,
cool.
For
but
sure.
that's what I'm gonna.
The same way the person sending that email saying, I'm not coming into the office because you're mandating vaccines is no different than this girl saying, I'm not coming to the office because you haven't mandated the vaccine.
Yes.
So
Same
they're
thing.
the same. They're
Okay.
the same.
As long as we keep it that way.
Yeah.
It's good for the goose. It's good for the gander.
I don't know that I necessarily would want to work for somebody who literally said you can't work here if you weren't protecting your health. You know?
Protecting your health. You know,
It's
that's
subjective.
that's funny.
And there you
That's
go.
That's funny.
With that being said, make sure you like, subscribe, follow, and share. We are on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. We are on Spotify, Apple, Google, Pandora, Buzzsprout. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or would just like to apply for a job, you can reach out to Kimmy B at ManTFupTV.com.